again with my wonderful friend, kind of a little, we're sort of soul puppies. We're sort of from the same litter, separated by some decades. This is Will Markham, and he's broadcasting from my bedroom upstairs. Will's been staying with us for a while, and we're causing so much trouble. I was introduced to Will by Claudia Stauber, who is a wonderful live streamer, and she put together a little group of people who were experimenting with live stream. And I was super impressed with Will's brilliance and ability to design this whole series on knowing when manipulative psychological tools are being and techniques are being used on you by the media, and for that matter, anyone else. So it's sort of like it's his Gaslighting 101 series, and they're really great. And Will has been helping to develop the Greene Fyre review. We both realized very quickly that as Facebook has been ramping up its sordid bullshit censorship starting back in April of 2016 in a really overt way, even though we knew a lot of the bullshit was going on. We realized, so we've been talking, we realized we needed to create a collective. So I had the Greene Fyre review and sort of in the back of my mind, and I was thinking I was going to do it for 3 years, but not sure what the format was. And it's now very clear it's a collective. And so we're sharing the duties of finding and promoting the content of lots of different independent producers, and we're in lots of different places now. So we've realized that not only the verbal content and the visual content and the videos of producers, but encouraging people to stream and putting together what have we been calling it? Your share army. Will's put together a share army of people. So I'm going to after that glowing introduction. Thanks, and Kate Catanella just shared us.
Yay.
So let's just turn it to you, Will, and you're the one who named the talk "Being Authentic."
Yes.
So let's sort of get through your background, why you think this is an important topic, and what your life experience has taught you to now about being authentic and the importance of it.
Well, before I get into that, I just wanted to share one little fun fact, and that is that what inspired me to do my video series was me watching my own mother being brainwashed by the mainstream media. She was just buying into one narrative and then to the next narrative and the next narrative. Now, to her credit, she's much smarter than the average person. She was able to notice, more than half of these narratives as BS. But I wanted to create this video series just in case other people had their family members that weren't able to see all the BS in the media. And I thought, okay, maybe I may not be able to save my own mother, but maybe I'll be able to save someone else's mom. And so I put together the video series.
Well, I think that's hilarious considering that you keep telling me that I remind you of your mom.
The good aspects of my mother.
Oh, good rejoinder. You know how to keep the lasagna and the brownies coming.
Yes. Well, she's my mom is great. There's she just still absolutely loves Democracy Now! And she hasn't yet figured out that Democracy Now! Is just not the same as it was 2 years ago. I mean, it really did go south about the.
Something happened to Amy when she got arrested at Standing Rock. We don't know what it was, but something really bad happened to her. We just felt it.
Yes, that was the week that I started noticing their broadcasts were very different from the week before, and I'm like, something's off. And so that's around that time that took a shift. But I think, and as interestingly enough, I grew up in California and then I moved to Utah during my teenage years, and strangely enough, that actually prepared me for my life today, because.
Yeah, I have to interject here now. Will runs an Airbnb with his mom. He's Mormon Bates. Go on.
All right. Okay, so anyway, Yeah, so in Mormon land in Utah, now I want to preface this that there is a very big difference between a religion and the culture of the religion. They're
Mm-hmm.
very separate. So when if I'm ever, bad mouthing Utah, and just remember that I'm referring to the Mormon culture, not the Mormon religion. That's a very important
Mm-hmm.
distinguishing to have. Um, and this is something I've observed not just in Mormon culture, but most every strict religious culture, it tends to breed superficiality, and there's a very interesting explanation for that. Um, it's a very interesting explanation for that. It all goes back to, and this is why it's more prominent among the strict religions. When you have sexual repression in a culture, it tends to, of course, whatever it is you suppress ends up dominating your subconscious, because you're just pushing it down into your subconscious, and it ends up ruling your subconscious. And this is why Utah is like, the capital of pornography consumption and everything.
Yeah.
But you get the idea, is that you have higher pornography rates among stricter religious cultures because of that sexual repression element.
Right.
And what it tends to do to someone when they're sexually repressed is it keeps them in mate selection mode, because in their subconscious they're always thinking about sex in the back of their mind for some reason. And so they're in mate selection mode. That's why they don't want to go outside of their house without putting makeup on, is because when you're in mate selection mode, you're always thinking, oh, how am I going to look in front of the neighbors? Oh, I dare not go to Walmart in my pajamas. I've got to put makeup on, and I got to make sure I look decent. So
You have to
people
find
don't.
mascara that matches those pajamas if you're going to go to Walmart.
Well, yeah, and so
Sorry, I'm
and
just
so
feeling so punchy as we talked about.
It's okay. And so
We're
this
on
is
year 4 of
why.
the post-Bernie revolution, and we're like, what the fuck? What do we do now? But so go ahead.
Okay, this is why sexual repression contributes to a superficial culture.
Right.
Is because it keeps them in this perpetual mate selection mode that makes them always thinking about how they appear, and so it keeps them minded always on superficial elements instead of going deep.
Right.
And so it's a culture that it's kind of a taboo to talk too much about politics or even religion, even though they're a religious culture.
Right.
They don't like to talk about religion because it's too controversial,
Right.
type of thing. And so this is what, and not only does it breed superficiality, but it also breeds a duplicity, because they have to have a version of them on the outside and a version of them on the inside.
Right.
And they're almost afraid to be themselves, because they don't want to offend anybody, or they don't want to be too unpleasant. It's a culture where it's like, to be mean and angry is kind of also a no-no, because you're not supposed to offend people. It's kind of not so good. It's like, oh, you're being negative. Stop being negative.
That's
and
something
so
that I really miss about the East Coast is, people get super crabby in the winter and they don't hold back.
yes.
But people will tell you what they feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you're walking down the street and you're just like not paying attention and you like trip, people aren't going to say, "Oh dear, are you all right?" That Midwestern stuff or that Mormon stuff. They're going to slap you and they're going to go, "What is with you?"
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say, "Look smart," and you're like, "Well, that was harsh, but you know what? Now I'm just focused and I'm going forward," and it's kind of, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hearing you. I'm hearing this is oppressive. It's like a miasma. It's like a constant cloud cover. So how do you break out of that?
Yes, and this experience of me just being me in this culture of people that weren't themselves is really kind of what groomed me for today. It has the title "Living in Authenticity in a World of Cognitive Dissonance."
Right.
Now, granted, there's a little bit of a difference between people being superficial and fake versus cognitive dissonance, but they very much are related into this theme of being fake and not authentic. Cognitive dissonance is formed, or one of the major causes of cognitive dissonance is when their ego is attached to their worldview, and they grasp to that worldview because their ego is attached to it, and it's like it's like they clench to it, and they won't accept any other version of reality, even if they can see it in front of their faces. It's like if you show them evidence of the free fall collapse of 9/11, or any kind of visual evidence that they can see in front of their eyes, that it's like, look, here it is in front of your face, they'll be like, oh no, our governor would never do that to us, or something like that. And so there's a little bit of a difference between cognitive dissonance and superficiality.
But can you back up for a second?
Oh, sure.
I've heard Scott Adams, who I have found very educational to listen to him and have him explain how Trump uses the arts of persuasion and business management. I mean, he's living on another planet about a lot of what he thinks, but he has pointed out some very interesting points. He describes cognitive dissonance as the telltale markers of cognitive dissonance are the moment when they think they're trying to listen to you, but then they make up some crazy ass story about what you're actually thinking.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with what you are actually thinking, and then they project it onto you, and it's what we consider in the logic community to be like a straw man projection. You say, well, I think that Trump is, he doesn't remember the facts, and so he says something that's close enough, knowing that people will realize that he's not really trying to lie, and then the person who has cognitive dissonance will go, do you mean to tell me that you think it's fine and acceptable and morally correct for Trump to be an evil, satanic, il duce liar? And Scott Adams is like, no, I didn't say that. I didn't think that. I don't feel any of that. And he said that that's when you can tell that somebody's in cognitive dissonance. So can you add another? I know there's lots of different ways to define it.
Let me describe how and why that works. What cognitive dissonance is? See, like, it's really a matter of whether people operate by their five senses, or whether they operate or whether they base their entire value systems on their five senses, or whether they, like, if I were to close my eyes and if I were to try to walk around the room, my mind will try to construct like a mental image of what might be around me, in front of me, in order to prevent me from tripping over things. And it's that mental construct that overrides what we actually see, and that is kind of the basic functioning premise of how cognitive dissonance works. The mind is manufacturing a reality that is not based on the senses, but based on our own mental construct,
right?
Or constructs, plural. And so this is kind of how, like let's say if you find someone who's super devoted to their religion, and if you were to tell them, oh no, that's kind of doesn't quite make sense, they might totally get triggered and freak out, type of thing, and go through that exact similar projection. And this is something I also experienced in Utah. Now, I wouldn't go about telling people that their religion is BS, but I would point out certain interesting inconsistencies between what was being taught in the religion, and then of course it would get wild, which is very similar to what we see today, is that if you go contrary to the CNN narrative and someone has constructed in their mind that the CNN is the reality internally, then they will project just like you described that. So how we break that is really to number one, to detach our ego from our worldview, and which also makes it so that we base our reality based on what we can see, hear, and touch and everything, to try to reconcile, and this is an important thing, to reconcile what you believe with the reality right in front of you. Because when you don't reconcile that, how do you know that your reality is the real reality? And see, like people like us who are truth seekers, because we are truth seekers, we have a
Oh no,
long
I'm
time.
not a truth seeker. Believe me, I'm building a fantasy world as fast as I fucking can. Speak for yourself.
So
You're just projecting your cognitive dissonance on me. You want to believe that I'm
yes,
a
I
truth
am.
seeker.
So
I'm over
when
here,
we are,
believe me, in my mind while you're talking, I'm riding a white horse in a flowing dress with
I know.
on a side saddle towards a beautiful shirtless man holding a fucking chocolate cake. But go on.
Right, before I lose my thought. So so
Like,
when, okay, what was I talking about? Is about when we
like truth seekers
okay.
like us.
Yes, okay. Truth seekers like us have a long time habit of adjusting our worldview based on the evidence in front of us. If someone shows us, oh, hey, we have evidence that there might be some really bad child trafficking going on in Hollywood and Washington, D.C., we will change our views to match the evidence. And we're in the habit of doing that because we're truth seekers. People who are not truth seekers but believe that the Washington Post is awesome and that the New York Times is a reputable source, they're not in the habit of changing the evidence in front of them to fix their worldview. Instead, they will take their worldview and try to fix reality to fit their worldview. And
Right.
this is the main difference between the truth seeker and the cognitive dissonant, is how willing they are to change their ideas based on new evidence. That is the key thing. And one of the things that helps us reconstruct our reality based on new evidence is whether we attach our ego with our worldview or not. If I believe that, oh, all Democrats are right and all Republicans are wrong, well, guess what? I'm a sheep, because we all know that, but and same thing with the vice versa. If all Republicans are right and Democrats are wrong.
Okay, so one of our viewers has said,
mhm.
and I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was because it scrolled quickly,
That's
that
okay.
cognitive dissonance is a defense mechanism in PTSD. So how does cognitive dissonance keep us safe?
Okay, well, I'm also a PTSD survivor. Yes, it is also a defense mechanism, and can be as a defense mechanism, especially if the person has not processed the reality. But then again, just because they have the cognitive dissonance doesn't necessarily mean they have to, or they haven't processed the reality. That's a very complex question. There's no simple answer to that. Speaking as one who's been through it, because for many years I did try to rationalize as if my survival, I was left homeless and starving, been through excruciating pain, so there's also a torture element and starvation element in my PTSD. But
Oh my God,
for 2 years, I was making excuses for the person that tried to kill me. That's just how it was for the first couple years. And even then, after those first 2 years, this happened 9 years ago. Even after those first 2 years, I was trying to manufacture excuses as to why it must have happened. Kind of like a retrospective determinism
right,
type of
right.
argument.
So the
As
cognitive
oh,
dissonance
God must.
creates a story that feels safer to you.
Yes,
Okay.
it made me feel better about myself, or made me feel better or first made me feel better towards my persecutor, and or tried to rationalize and save them, and then later it made me manufacture some BS stories as like, what didn't kill me made me stronger, and God wanted me to be stronger.
Right.
To an extent that could be true, but it's still, I'm still bullshitting myself.
Right.
The reality is that shit happens, and I was lucky to survive. That's really, for the most part, all there is to it. I mean, I could come up with all kinds of justification stories and everything, but at the end of the day, they're just me trying to convince myself
Right.
to make me feel better about myself, which again is the ego
So
is all about protection.
So rationalization and cognitive dissonance are closely related. Sometimes they're the same thing, and they're ego creating a protection. Okay.
Yes, but it's important to note that the ego is not all bad. The ego is necessary for protection, for self-protection. And so you never want to say to someone, get rid of your ego, because that could make you vulnerable to abuse. So your ego is a good thing, but keep it in check before it controls. You want to control your ego before your ego controls you. And so, so there is a very important function with the ego. And so, yeah, it's very common to have cognitive dissonance with a trigger scenario. I myself had it for at least 5 years in one form or another. It kept evolving over the years. It took me many years to basically say to myself that it's like, you know what, I'm just making excuses for myself. It happened. I was lucky to survive. Maybe God did, and I still do believe that. I think God had handed me surviving. I'm not gonna lie. You know, God / the universe, whatever you want to call him, because there were there were a lot of rare statistical anomalies that happened that caused me to survive. I mean, things such as, people call them miracles. I call them coincidences or statistical anomalies, but you get the idea.
Yes. So, Will, I want to get back to the specific tools, because you're obviously a very sensitive person and you're a courageous person. When you don't have the tools of ego defenses, of projection, denial, rationalization, and you're just thrown open to the truth of the universe, what tools have you acquired or developed that help you, that kind of replace that toolkit?
That is a very good question. For me, I had to reconstruct my entire moral code from scratch. I had to stop and think, okay, what is really right and really wrong? I had been indoctrinated that, for example, okay, I'm just going to give an example, that all sex outside of marriage was absolutely one of the most horrid evils ever. That was what I had been indoctrinated with. Now, I will admit it's very good advice. It's not a good idea to have a lot of sex outside of marriage, because, I mean, if you're raising kids, that's the kind of advice you'd probably want to give your kids,
Buddy, speak for yourself.
Okay, I'm going to speak for myself.
I got that base thoroughly covered.
So I started to reconstruct my own moral code based on, okay, what is actually right and what is actually wrong, and why is it right, why is it wrong? I started applying the golden rule for everything and I applied empathy, and I reconciled all my rights and wrong based on how it actually affects people. For instance, bombing the Middle East is bad because, well, it actually kills people, innocent people. Oh, you get the idea. So I started to
the Buddhism first principle, cessation of suffering. All of my actions contribute to the cessation of suffering. Right.
And so that was pretty much the start of me being intellectually independent from all bullshit. Is because once you reconstruct your moral code, and your moral code determines your value systems determine what you focus on, on determines what you see. You can actually judge a media outlet accurately over a long period of time based on what they choose to cover versus not cover. And it's because the grand sum of a outlet's focus will determine their value systems over a period of time. Like each choice of what they choose to cover versus not cover is like a little stone in a mosaic, and the grand sum of those stones in the mosaic will paint a picture of their value systems and moral code. So your moral code is your backbone of everything else. If you can figure out someone's moral code, you will know how they think, because you will know their value systems. You'll know that they will prefer this over that. And and you know what's very strange is that I actually discovered this by pure accident. One of
My moral code, the things that I think about a lot, it involves chocolate. But you figured out that right away. When I was sick with the flu, you kept sneaking the chocolate mints into the house. I was like, Will, you're very good at this. And you were like, yeah, I've been married.
That's saying the way to a man's heart is through their stomach, you know.
Well, I have been cooking for you and my husband, so it
maybe that's why I love you.
It was good karma. It was good karma. You're a good son. You're so much like my husband, though. Oh my God, bizarre, so bizarre. But anyway, as you were saying, son, you reconstructed your moral code based all around the golden rule, based all around the first principle of harmless
empathy. Yes, empathy and the golden rule. I started to feel well. This is around the time when I was training empaths, which is a whole other long story.
Back when you were at Hogwarts.
Yes, when I was at Hogwarts. Yes, and my mentor, who's telepathic and everything.
At Hogwarts, Utah.
Yes. Well, I was actually.
Crack myself up.
It looks like I lost your live stream for a little bit. I was actually kicked out from my religion for a bit under the accusation of teaching witchcraft, which is interesting enough. All right, let's see. Looks like I lost Mary.
No, I'm here. No, you haven't lost me. You haven't lost me.
Okay.
I'm still up. You have not lost me.
Let's see. Send her a quick message.
No, you have not lost me. I'm here.
Okay. Where's hello. Okay, it looks like I lost Mary. And not sure what's going on.
Bill.
All right. Well, we're going to continue this a bit later. Okay. Oh, okay. Let's go ahead and invite her. All right, you're back. All right, very good.
I was there the whole time.
Oh, okay. Well, something on my end.
There's a chat here, Will, that if you look on your screen, you'll see that I was chatting with you and telling you that I was still here. You know what? That's because we started talking about Hogwarts, Hogwarts in Utah.
Witchcraft.
And the first rule of Hogwarts is that you don't talk about Hogwarts.
Well, yes. Well, maybe that's why I got kicked out.
That's right.
All right, so I see the messages now. Okay, so, but that's crazy story is going to be for another time. The summary of it is that I started to learn that there's a very strong connection between a person's moral code and their thought processes, and that when you figure out their moral code, you can predict their thoughts, their moves, and pretty much anything. And it's so yeah, once you figure out a person's moral code, you can crack the code. And this is how I did my video series. I mean, because once I figured out the moral code of these sociopaths, I'm able to figure out, how they do everything.
Right.
It's like I'm hacking into their minds and then warning everyone about this is how they operate.
So you would say that your series on how to know when you're being controlled is basically sort of a care and feeding of your sociopath handbook.
Yes, and especially the gaslighting series. The gaslighting series is probably the most important series. I'm almost done writing the script. The second part, it should be out probably in 1 to 2 weeks, maybe closer to 1 week. And it's to know what kind of tricks that they not only will pull, but they do pull, and have pulled in the past.
Right.
Lesson 3 is a unique one because its original title was How to Immunize Yourself from Psychological Manipulation. Instead, I changed. It was so complex, and I couldn't really describe it, so I just changed the words to 7 ways to unsheep yourself.
Well, marketing is key.
Exactly. So instead of immunizing yourself from psychological manipulation,
Yeah.
editing yourself.
I
So
like that one.
that one is unique. It's kind of a standalone lesson that has almost nothing but everything to do with the other lessons.
Okay, so Will, there's something that I want to talk about, and I'm a bad example. I'm a very, very bad
That's
example of
okay.
this, but
Mm-hmm.
this is why it's important for me. Because I have Capricorn moon or something, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like super emotionally like relentless and stubborn, and when something is incredibly intense and I have to work it out, I'll just like shut everybody out of my life, and I'll spend like a month, like I did this last month, in bed, like thinking and,
Mm-hmm.
just trying to get through something, even if it's like really emotionally horrific.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that I brutalize myself. I put myself through a lot of unnecessary trauma because I don't actually talk about shit with other people. I work it out on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like almost going to start crying right now because I know that this is a bad habit, and it's just relentless, and it's like, it's more efficient in a certain way because I don't have to bother people or line people up. But in another way, it takes a huge toll on me physically and emotionally and my relationships. And I need better tools for finding truthers, people who are following the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you recommend? What do you have to give us so that fewer of us will just fucking get through? Like my period of time where back in the summer of 2016, when I was really understanding the pedopocracy, the kakistocracy, and how they run the world, I didn't have anyone to talk about the satanic abuse of children. I just fucking went out there and I read all of the psyops and all of the most horrible stuff and all of the confusing stuff. And I had the horror of it all and a lot of bullshit and a lot of fear-based bullshit coming to it. And it was super hard for me. And I don't want to do that anymore. And I don't want to put other people through it. So what do you have to offer in that regard?
Ooh, that is a very good question. First of all, your coping habits are strangely very common. Have you ever heard of a man retreating into their man cave and just kind of like figuring out that it's extremely similar to what men commonly do? They go to their, whether it's a workshop in the garage or playing video games or watching movies. Men do that all the time. It's a very common coping habit for what men do.
My husband tells me that I pretty much am a guy. I have the mind of a guy in a lot of ways.
And the only difference is that yours are more intense and efficient.
They're horrible. It's so painful. I don't think I'm efficient. I think I brutalized myself by not having a support system to actually help me think of these horrible things.
Yes. Now you know why I'm on the phone with my friends a lot. They call about random, about dramas online or guy problems or everything. I'm just always the guy that everyone talks to, and I enjoy it. I mean, it's just.
Where do you find people that you can talk to? I mean, and how do you?
That was hard.
Yeah, that's what so we are building a community now. I mean, I don't bring these dramas to you so much because I feel like you're busy and I'm used to but I want to stop being that way. So
just send me a text.
Okay. So we do have a truth community online to some degree.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes, or at least through the thousands of people that we have added in a Bernie groups, we kind of narrowed it down to our top 10 friends, kind of thing. So we do have a community. It's definitely there, and people can always just chat with me. Add me, and so forth.
Well, how do you deal with the fact that children get brutalized in those ways? I'm trying to not think about it, but when it comes up in my mind, that happens to children and still happening to children, and I can't personally do something about it. Oh my God. People are saying, love my closed Facebook groups. Right.
Yes. It was very difficult for me to, when my first awakening happened in 2006, it took me at least a couple of years to truly come to terms with the realization that these that these psychopaths just rule the world with an iron fist type of thing, and that now keep in mind I was a religious person at this time, and that people who worship the devil or control of everything.
Right.
I mean, under the perspective of a religious person, that is, you just replace psychopaths with Satan worshippers or Lucifer worshippers,
Right.
and that's basically the same kind of thing. You get the idea. Yes, how all these psychopaths that are in these secret societies are ruling and controlling the world. It took me a couple years to truly come to terms with that, and that's even with one of my close friends that had lots of connections who I probably shouldn't talk on live stream about on live stream, which is a whole other topic. Yeah, and don't want to dive too deep into that rabbit hole.
We don't need to talk about how I have a friend who is now deceased who was working in the most brutal circumstances as a CPS worker, as a child protective services worker in the Central Valley of California, Indio, the area just outside of Palm Springs. And she, this was 10 years ago. She was telling me about that satanic abuse definitely does exist. And she had worked with many survivors of it. And many of them were adults who had it happen to them as children. And some of them were children. And I was like, that's not just crazy, stupid bullshit movies that are made about demonic Catholic priests. And as time has gone on, I've met and talked to more and more and more of them, and learned that this is actually an organized thing. This isn't just the random psycho teenagers who decide to torture a cat and then their little brother. And I want to know how my knowing about this and going through that suffering is making any fucking difference, because when people tell me how to deal with it now, I tell them, don't study it. Don't study it. Focus on making the world decentralized and taking your sovereignty back, because you can't actually make a difference in that. And I'm probably wrong, but that's the only thing I can say.
I do have a friend, a different friend, not the one that you're referring to, who lives kind of near that same area in California, who is fighting that.
Desert Hot Springs, just outside of Palm Springs, Palm Desert.
The more desert areas of California. It's very bad there.
Yeah.
They call it SRA, satanic ritual abuse, but they also are involved in trafficking children and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really bad out there. And there's, USA has a really bad child trafficking problem. I'm not a specialist in that area. I just know that it's real and that it's there. And I have a few friends who have survived it as kids. That's pretty much the extent of my knowledge of it. I'm a moderate researcher of pedogates. I'm not the expert on pedogate kind of things. I just know that, there's a ring in Hollywood, there's a ring in DC, and then there's rings, scattered.
Belgium, London.
Yeah.
But the question isn't about pedogate. It's how do you reconstitute yourself when you've intentionally broken your own fucking heart with this horror and tragedy? And I had no idea how horribly it was going to affect me. I had no idea.
Yes. The answer to that for me actually came from religious thing. Let me go ahead and let's see if they call it the Serenity Prayer. You've heard of it?
Yes. Oh yeah.
That helped me a lot. Let's see.
God, if I had only had that, I've totally forgotten about it. I haven't even done it for years. Okay. But if I had just had that as a little card and pulled it out and just had myself do it. Oh my God.
I'm going to pull it out and
helped me so much. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to quote the first paragraph. God grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can't change, and wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
So this mantra has really helped me for those first 2 years, because I was a very religious person and had access to this. And it's just that principle of you just do what you can and say, just asking God or the universe to do with what you can't do. You know, just kind of leave it. Whatever it is, you know, that you can't deal with, you leave that to God and just say, okay, what can I do? You know, and sometimes the answer is, you know what? I know a friend who's really good at this, and you know, I should send him a message.
Okay, so you're encouraging me to reach out to my friends more. I mean, I have a very fierce, independent mind. I'm very fearless in certain ways, and I've had to go through my own struggle to get there. But I don't have to torture myself with things that would be more efficient for the collective and would leave me more open and available to other people if I would just reach out and get help every fucking now and again when I need it. I am a guy. I'm basically a guy. Do you want to have pizza later and hang out?
I'm actually more on the feminine side myself.
I know. It's like, as is my husband, you're so much like him.
Yes, I'm a clone of your husband.
You guys really are. It's really, and Allie. You're like this, this creepy, like, morpho man. Okay, you're not creepy. I love you, Will. All right, so we have 11 minutes. What do you want to say? 11 is the number.
Okay, I want to talk about living in authenticity in a world of cognitive dissonance, and how the Greene Fyre Review is the authenticity in a world of cognitive dissonance. I mean, think about it for a second. We are citizen journalism. You're reporting what we know, what we see from the best independent sources, from the Anti-Media, from the Free Thought Project, you know, all these different websites, and we're putting it in, and we're living in a world of CNN, cognitive dissonance, and MSNBC, and then the other side, you got Fox News, and you get the idea is that, and this is why I chose this topic, is because not only have I been living in a world, you know, myself in a cognitive dissonance, that's what we are experiencing every day. Is we are the authentic ones.
For each other.
And we're living in a world of cognitive dissonance. You turn on the TV, that's the world of cognitive dissonance right there.
And even when we're feeling like our most wrecked, we're actually the rock and the reality check for each other. And that's, we just have to, I have to continue to come back to a place of service and go, at least the fact that I live in reality is going to help somebody when I can pull myself out of this feeling of horror enough to be in contact with someone else. Them knowing that I exist is important. And
so, you know, it's like Bernie said, it's not me, us. You know, Greene Fyre it's not about me, it's about us. It's all about, and in fact, this is kind of where this is like a lesson for me. I need to reach out to some of my friends, because I know all kinds of people who can, you know, help me in this and help me in that with this, you know, for those that are interested in citizen journalism.
And it just all of a sudden became a collective. We realized that if we were going to be promoting, if we actually wanted to be creating the new media, well, it has to be a collective. And there was an article in the World Socialist website right about the time that we were turning this into a collective, which was very serendipitous. And Bob Bose wrote a wonderful response to that, which is on the Greene Fyre Review. But we realized that we could get shut down at any second by the powers that be, the deep state banking cartel, Silicon Valley goon squad that is working, which is working in such a concerted effort to shut down truth and dissent. And so we need to, so we immediately went out and we started spreading ourselves out on lots of different platforms. All of the videos from today are going to go up on Steemit, BitChute, and you said you're going to do YouTube. We're also on MeWe and Minds, as well as Facebook. And even though we're reaching a ridiculous number of people, like 18,000 people a week on Facebook, which is insane. We have 1,300 followers and we're reaching 18,000. That's nuts. But that's because there are very few of these centralized places of truth. So we realized that we needed to really expand the collective and to be encouraging more people to be creating journalism and their testaments to the truth, more people to be sharing it, and to create solidarity with the other people who are doing that. So,
yeah, well, Greene Fyre pretty much functions as a gathering tool. Is that we are the source, and Greene Fyre just, you know, it's really just kind of like what brings us together, like this Livestream Marathon. It brought us together, and that's really what it's about. Is that we are the source, and that these media outlets are really just gathering tools of kind of like the nervous system of bringing information
Right.
back. That's a strange analogy, but you get the idea.
No, it's like all of these different, those are like the neurons, and
Yes.
we're like the living impulse we're like
Yes.
the fire that goes
That's
down
right.
the neurons. Yes.
Exactly. We are the fire, we are the life, and the green fire
for the
is
ever
really
eternal life in the heart center. Yeah.
It's just what gathers us together. It's citizen journalism. That's what it is.
Yeah. Okay, well, so we're doing it.
All right. Any final questions for me? Let's see if I missed any big questions.
You're going to have to scroll through because you're the host. I can't see them.
Oh, for some reason I'm not able to see them either. Technical problems. Oh well.
Well, I think what you've said is that after we struggle ourselves into the light, the next thing that we do if we're compassionate beings is we put aside our fierce independence and we start surrendering ourselves to a larger effort to be organized about it so that we can bring other people into a place of feeling safe and recognized and empowered. And that's why we create collectives. The
truth itself is empowering. We really just need to reconcile ourselves to the truth, and that's to the reality in front of us. And you'll find that people who value truth tend to attract other people who value truth. It's almost like they find each other and they just love each other, and type of thing. Whereas, and the same goes for people who love CNN and flock with people who love NPR. I mean, you get the idea. They just like minds seem to attract each other, and so it really just goes about with loving the reality before us and valuing the reality before us, and then that automatically in itself brings us together.
Right.
It's just kind of interesting how that works. So yeah,
it's the magnetic principle, the law of attraction.
Yeah, there we go.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Diana Given says, use discernment in your heart to judge information. And I think she just said the green fire reminds her of the heart center. Yeah, it is. That's part of the reason why I came up with that name. And I called myself Green Fire for a long time until Facebook forced me to change my name, or my accounts would be taken away from me forever. So fuck you, Facebook. But I guess it forced me to start being detached about the name and to see it as the name for the collective, because we're perpetuating, we're propagating the green fire. So a model for others of love and compassion. I suck at that though, Diana. I suck at that, all of that. I'm really bad at it. I'm a better
model for love and compassion.
Yeah, just like let Will do the love and compassion shit.
Or Ben.
Or Ben. You guys are like awesome at that. No, trust me. It's like somebody called me a saint once in one of Claudia's videos, and I was like, I didn't live stream for a month. I was like, that is wrong. That is there's no fucking, nobody's ever going to say that to me again. No.
Hey, there is a virtue with getting shit done. That is a virtue.
And that is me.
You have that virtue. Yes.
I definitely have it. And when I feel bad about being bitchy too, I cook. So
yes,
you get that.
That's true. All right. Well, let's get ready
not
for the
even
next.
denying that I'm bitchy. All right. We need to go before this degenerates into something weirder than it is.
Our next person.
Diana says that I have a quiet taste, but worth it. Hey, Diana.
Next is Deb Della, and she's awesome. You. So let's get ready for Deb the next broadcast.
All right, thanks everyone. We should take Diana on. We can have a steampunk, the woke steampunk from Arizona. She's in Arizona, Will.
Oh, that's right.
She knows a lot of my Prescott friends. Will was in Phoenix.
Right.
I love you, Diana. All right.
I was in Phoenix. All right. Okay, have a good one.
Okay, we'll be on soon with Deb Della Piana. Bye.